Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the call today. Before we get started, this is just a reminder that this call will be recorded and that we will send you a link to the recording afterwards. So, to open the call, I will introduce you to the team presenting today. I am Millie Hook, Programme Manager here at Lloyd's Register Foundation. I'll be presenting with Nancy Hay, our Director of Evidence and Insight. And later in the call, we'll also be joined by Caitlin Vaughan, Senior Project and Stakeholder Engagement Manager, and Chris White, Head of Programme Delivery, for a question and answer session. You'll be able to see the agenda for today's session. We will give an overview of the foundation and the funding call, and then we'll allow a really good amount of time for you to ask any questions in a Q&A afterwards. So to get us started, I will hand over to Nancy to introduce you to the foundation and the Global Safety Evidence Centre. Over to you, Nancy.
Nancy, you're on mute. This is a good start. I was listening so intently to Millie. So welcome to the Lloyd's Register Foundation and the Global Safety Evidence Centre within the foundation. The foundation itself is a global safety charity. So those things are all important, global and safety and charity. And our mission is to engineer a safer world. And so we're building on over 250 years of maritime safety knowledge to enhance the safety of life, property, and the environment. And the foundation is a unique structure. So we are the sole shareholder of Lloyd's Register Group, which is a global trading company. And everything we do in the foundation is to support that overall mission of global safety. Just the foundation strategy that informs this call. The Evidence Centre is one of the foundation capabilities to help inform all of our work that we all do, both within the foundation and more broadly around the world, to engineer a safer world. And we do that alongside our heritage team with huge amounts of knowledge. And that's important for our safety science programme that I'll talk about shortly. We have 3 safety priority areas and 4 big global safety challenges that we're trying to tackle. So we're aware that we need to adapt to climate change and improve our resilience, to tackle to deal with the energy transition and decarbonisation. There's a big technological transition and dealing with new technologies, and a big change in global workforce. The ocean economy is developing rapidly, particularly through our ocean centre countries. We have 3 big safety priority areas within that we will particularly be interested in. We're not limited to that. One is safer maritime systems, one is safer sustainable infrastructure, and the third is skilled people for safer engineering. We want to do that in 5 ways. We would like to internationalise, being locally led, and that's important for this call. We would like to help influence others to act, and part of that will be about making sure that people who are closest to those changes can help make the decisions and use the evidence that we create in the Evidence Centre to take action. We would like to leverage additional resources where we possibly can, so we can fund where it really suits our mission and we're the best place, but other people are often much better placed to maximise the impact we can all make to global safety. We'd like to be a trusted voice in safety, and that really matters for the quality of the evidence work, and you'll see that that's a key criteria for any of the projects that we would be looking to fund in this. And we would like to have a strong voice in the maritime system of the future, so that picks up our priorities and the global safety challenges we're aware of. So that's what the foundation as a whole is trying to do, and the Global Safety Evidence Centre is within that. And I want to talk particularly about the Evidence Centre. So why does this matter? So we believe that evidence is critical to improving safety, and that evidence about action about safety should be informed by the best possible evidence that we can have. There's 2 challenges that we're trying to address. One, sometimes we just don't know enough about either the problem or the safety challenge itself. So that's things like the World Risk Pollers help try and tackle that. But often we don't know what we can do to address it, or simply that we don't know what is available already, what knowledge has already been created. And actually, we know from 250 years of action that a lot of things can be tackled and have been before, and there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of experts around the world. So building on knowing what we already know and building on that is really important. We're aiming to bring this knowledge together. So the centre is a bridge between knowledge and action. We want to get the information about safety challenges and what works to address them to the people who can and want to use this as closely as possible. So the Evidence Centre, it aims to collate, create and communicate evidence with people who can and want to use it to improve safety outcomes around the world. And you can see more about the Evidence Centre more broadly, but it's a bridge between knowledge and action. And those collation you'll see is evidence synthesis, creation is new evidence, whether that's innovation and discovery, developing and scaling interventions that we think look promising, or communicating that knowledge with and through people who want to use it to make change happen. So the two themes that the Evidence Centre is starting with for this particular call as well, we've got two evidence programmes. One is around safety science itself. So what is safety? How do we measure it? What tools and methods do we use to understand it? Safety is a very broad field. There's lots of different types of safety, lots of different safety specialisms. So what can we understand from across those disciplines, professions and contexts that can be used more broadly? And so, for example, we've got there's aviation, crowd safety, lots of different types of safety. How can we use that knowledge across what can be transferred, what can't be, what are the tools and techniques that really make the difference? Making sure we really understand what we mean by safety. So a conceptual review of safety, for example, would be really interesting. And measures for how we can evaluate safety interventions and tools, those sorts of things as well. So we're really helping communicate what safety is, how we can understand and use it. So the sorts of things that are in our areas of research interest in this area are things like learning from successes. How do we learn from safety successes? What are they? What happened? How did that change happen? And why? There's been some fantastic ones over the years recently, for example, in Bangladesh garment industry, for example. How can we learn from the worst? How do we learn best from failure, inquiries, incidents, disasters, to really make the difference to safety outcomes? What is that long tail of disaster? How do we make sure we're resilient? What are the stories of bounce back? And how do we learn from the past effectively? Also looking at how we can learn about emerging risks to safety. That's something we're all doing in all these sectors, as well as learning which safety and tools and methods and disciplines are out there that we can all use to tackle safety challenges. The second area and evidence programme is around safe work, and that's because we need industries that are difficult and challenging to be able to do their jobs as well as possible, and the people in them to be safe at work. We know that this is particularly an issue in high hazard industries, which include the ones that we care about most at the foundation, so maritime and critical infrastructure particularly. But you can see that from our World Risk Poll, 18 to 19% of the global workforce have experienced harm while working, and this is stubbornly high, doesn't really move. And actually, it's not something that people typically worry about. They're much more likely to worry about severe weather events or road accidents, and therefore action on them is most likely. So we know from safety science that we have to think about safe work more consciously, and that's the reason for this programme particularly. There's also an sustainable development goal around safe work and safe working environments, and we'd really like to contribute to that global evidence base around goal 8.8, so that we've got safe work in all of the industries we need to support our prosperity globally. We really want to understand the safety issues at work, and really importantly, the safety interventions that we can do that can improve safety outcomes, and how effective are they? So are they safe? Are they effective? Are they the best thing you can do, i.e. cost effective in those contexts? So we also know from the research that the foundation did to set up the Evidence Centre, speaking to practitioners, occupational safety and health practitioners, that a lot of the knowledge and expertise in this area is within the people and the practitioners themselves. So we really would like to see projects that start to pull out that knowledge, map it against the evidence base, make sure we know that we're researching the right things so that it's relevant and useful as possible. So those are the two big themes that we're looking for projects around in this call. And so we've published two reports straight away at the launch of the centre. One was an evidence review of reviews of all occupational safety and health interventions that we could find globally. So I'd strongly recommend we build from that knowledge base as we look to do applications in this area. And we've also spoken to occupational safety and health practitioners globally to really understand what they know, what they need. And I'd really, like I said, want to understand that that expertise that they have, the things that you do that you think probably work because that's why you do them. And then we've also looked at risk and resilience within the World Risk Poll, but also that safety science field more generally, where we've actually also looked at how you understand, measure, value safety for grant making as well in our portfolio. There's 3 other projects that I really wanted to point out to you that we will be publishing over the next couple of months that will potentially inform what you decide to apply for. One is that we've done a big scoping review of all of the evidence we could find around safe work and climate change, which will help identify strong areas where we already know what's happening, but also gaps where we don't know as much, which will help inform what you choose to apply for. And safe work on emerging technologies, again, looking at 6 technologies that we think will affect occupational safety and health. And we'll also have an evidence review methods guide for those that particularly care. But if you've got a evidence review method or a research method that as long as you're using robust established methods, that's what we're looking for in these proposals. So I will pass over to Millie to talk about the call in more detail.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Nancy. So in terms of what we are looking for in your proposal, so we're looking for proposals that support with understanding and sharing which safety interventions work, inform decision making, highlight and fill knowledge and data gaps, and lead to safer outcomes, or those that lead to the creation of evidence to support influencing efforts. So there were 2 themes, safe work and safety science, which Nancy has just covered, and we are looking for a time frame of up to 2 years. In terms of the budget, as a general guide, we're looking for proposals between £100,000 to £250,000. There is some flexibility here, so you are, of course, welcome to apply for a lower level than that. But if you are looking to apply for a higher level than 250,000, we do ask that you speak to the foundation and provide a really specific rationale for why you would be looking for a higher level for us to be able to guide you on that. Proposals that are seeking the higher level of the budget thresholds are likely to be those resulting in multiple evidence outputs or focusing in multiple areas or regions of focus. And applications that leverage funding from other sources is highly encouraged. So this call is open to academic institutions, research organisations, non-profit organisations, social enterprises and industry. We're really encouraging collaborations across sectors and disciplines and applications from the Foundation's Ocean Centre countries, so that's Brazil, Kenya, Ghana, Bangladesh, India, the Philippines, and Indonesia, as well as other communities working within safer maritime systems, are strongly encouraged to apply. Researchers from OECD countries are encouraged to prove partnerships with those countries or a higher level of leverage funding to support with their application. So on our point around collaboration, we did want to take a moment to ask you all a question about whether you'd like extra support from the Foundation in creating partnerships for your proposal. So Caitlin is just about to put a poll live. It'd be really helpful if you're able to answer this poll to help us understand if that would be a helpful tool for you. So that poll is now live. Hopefully answers are starting to fly through from that. Just give you a moment to complete it. Okay, great. And I will now hand back to Nancy to talk a little bit about the evidence outputs that we are looking for from this funding call.
Thank you, Millie. And just I can see really great engagement and conversation happening, so I'm really pleased to see that. So I'm looking for a balanced portfolio here across the two different themes, but also across these 4 different types of activity that an evidence centre will do. So the first is collation of knowledge, so evidence reviews and synthesis. This could be different types of evidence reviews, but conceptual or indicator review. So what is an issue that we're talking about? How is it looked at in different fields, or how is it measured? An intervention effectiveness review is particularly what I'm interested in. So what is it that people do, and does it work? Is it safe, effective, and cost effective? Where that evidence exists would be particularly useful. Live evidence synthesis as well. If you're using AI in those reviews, I really want to see a strong methodology and understand what's going on in those, because that's a really emerging technology for this area. I'm very happy if it's not using AI. The research and evaluations type of proponents is creation of new knowledge, so primary research in various ways. So this is research or evaluation or trials, so pipeline research, working out a theory of change, could be mixed methods, could be qualitative research to understand what's happening to build a theory of change, could be innovation and discovery, early stage trials and pilots with appropriate methodology, could be much more rigorous trials or scaling of interventions, quasi-experimental studies, that sort of thing. The more control groups we have, the better, or some other sort of proxy control, as long as it's a high quality methodology that's appropriate for the intervention. It will not include the cost of the intervention itself, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to get a good spread of projects as well. But again, looking to evaluate not just new things, but also existing things that that people have always done that think work, that we could understand better as well. Again, that time period is within 1 to 2 years, though, for those studies. So sometimes these may be in the future much bigger projects as well. The third area is the data and analysis to really either understand a problem or make it easy to make it quicker, cheaper, and easier to use data by lots of other people to solve the problem as well. It might be primary data collection where that's appropriate, but it could definitely be secondary data analysis, so analysis of existing data. It's unlikely to be analysis of the World Risk Poll data, because that's already been funded by a separate call, but encourage you to use that as a starting point and integrate it into other data. The third area is around making sure we put the needs and interests of users and stakeholders at the heart of what we do as an evidence centre, and that we bring out that expert knowledge that practitioners and policymakers have about what they think works and what they think matters in improving safety outcomes, and also that we start to set research agendas that are relevant and useful as possible to those people who can and want to use it. So this is people like policymakers in standards or in other types of bodies that make regulations or recommendations, or practitioners, so people who do this in practice on a day-to-day basis, make change happen, and really understanding what they know, what they need to know, and how we can or how evidence, or how what we can see about, so for example, it could be a papers analysis of decision making about how evidence what evidence needs are existing in those areas as well. So those are 4 types of activity that the evidence centre will do, and I'm looking for projects across those areas to better understand policy safety outcomes in both safety science and safe work. I'll hand back to Millie.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, so in terms of what makes a good proposal, there's loads of information in the full guidance documents. That's linked in the website links that Caitlin has shared in the chat. But to give you a bit of a summary, we are looking for a methodology that is really high quality, appropriate and robust, with clear outline of the context and wider evidence base. We are looking for those that are relevant and useful, so responding to practitioners and workers' priorities and needs. And we want to see ones that show really clear communication, ensuring that findings are really well communicated to the people who can or should be using them. So that's workers, practitioners, industry, government, policy makers and funders. In terms of desirable criteria, we're looking for research that falls within the Foundation's strategic priorities and challenge areas. So you can read up on our strategy outline online, sorry. And we are really welcoming applications from researchers in Brazil, Kenya, Ghana, Bangladesh, India, Philippines, and Indonesia, as well as other communities working within safer maritime systems. And we'd really like to see proposals that are looking to leverage funding from other sources. And this is a really important point, especially if you are an applicant from an OECD country. So the support that the foundation will provide to successful grantees in addition to the funding. So we will be offering collaboration with the foundation and our partners, and you'll get to benefit from shared insights and strategic alignment with our broader mission to engineer a safer world, as well as quality assurance support for your evidence project should you need it. You'll also have access to networks and expertise. So we've got a global network of industry leaders, academic institutions, policy experts we will be able to support you in fostering valuable connections with to enhance your project's reach and outcomes. And we'll also be able to support with dissemination and publicity of your findings. So subject to quality standards being met, we'll be able to amplify your findings through the Global Safety Evidence Centre, industry platforms, conferences, publications, for example, and we'll be able to provide support in promoting outputs and outcomes to key stakeholders and decision makers, ensuring that your work reaches the right audiences to drive change. And then on the other side, in terms of expectations that we would expect from our partners, again, there's a lot more information on this in the guidance document, but we will do regular reporting, so quarterly and annual updates. And we will also ask for reports 3 years after, annually for 3 years after, to understand the impact that has been had by your evidence projects. Quality assurance. So we really want to make sure that the research is robust, relevant and well communicated. And we'll be asking for a lot more detail on how this will be managed in terms of your quality assurance processes in the full application. A note here that the foundation team can play a collaborative role in quality assurance if this is something you require. Of course, that's just a offer. And you're invited to discuss this with the foundation team if you go through the EOI stage to the full application to support you in how you would note that in your full application. Evidence outputs are expected to be open access, so available, publicly available, and again to note that subject to quality standards, that the hope is that they will be part of the Global Safety Evidence Centre. And we would also expect you to disseminate findings, so similar to the work we would be doing. It's very much a partnership to make sure that those findings are shared through your organisation and networks. So to quickly go through the process, so you are able to set up an account. That's the first stage in the process with our grant management system, FlexiGrants. Once that is set up, you will be able to submit an expression of interest. Now, the link for the actual form isn't quite live. It should be any day now. But if you do want to see the questions that are asked, that is actually already in the PDF document. So you can get an understanding of what those questions are, and it will be live very shortly for you. Those expressions of interest must be submitted to us by the 17th of September. And then following reviews of that. Successful applicants from the expression of interest stage will be invited to a full application, and they will need to submit that by the 12th of December. Following that, there will be an independent expert review of the full proposals before it goes through to our foundation leadership team as the final decision on which ones will be awarded. Then the aim for that, once all of that is complete, is that you will have the final decision by March 2026. And as soon as contracting is complete, then projects will be able to start. If it is helpful for you to do so, you are welcome to read our standard terms and conditions on our website, and there's a link in this document as well. And so that rounds off the end of our presentation for you. Please do be adding questions to our Q&A function, or if you'd rather ask questions verbally, please just raise your hand and we will go through those. But just before we jump into questions, I'm just going to highlight a few of the resources that we have available. So we have, of course, the Global Safety Evidence Centre. So that's full of the reports that Nancy has mentioned, and we'll also have the new reports coming out in the coming months as well. The funding call webpage, there'll be a link. We'll send around these slides afterwards, so you'll be able to access that, but that is live from the Global Safety Evidence Centre. And there is also a full guidance document on the call page. It's worth noting that this is a live document, so if we get FAQs that we haven't already added to the document, we'll keep adding them to those. So I would recommend that you don't save a copy, you keep referring to the one on the website. And then you're really welcome to sign up to our monthly newsletter as well. And then if there are any other questions following this webinar, you are, of course, very welcome to get in touch with us to ask any questions. But I will hand over now to Caitlin to open up the question and answer. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Millie. We've got a number of questions. Thank you, everyone, for being so engaged and having so many great questions. I think broadly we can categorise the questions that some about eligibility, some about the format of the expression of interest, and then a lot more about the actual content, the themes of the application. So I think we should start there with those more detailed questions, and I'll try and get through everything. So I will start. The first question in this area asks, can the projects be focused on chemicals and their environmental and human health impacts? I might put that one over to Nancy.
So we are a global safety charity, so they do need to focus on the safety outcomes. If it fits within the rest of the call, then yes, definitely.
Thank you. There's a question from Ruka saying that the topics under coming soon to the centre, can we apply for proposals falling under these topics?
Yeah, so the coming soon topics were climate change and emerging technologies. And yes, we would expect projects in those areas to be informed by that evidence base. Yes, please.
And another good question, do we need to focus only on maritime systems, or can it be associated or relevant systems?
I think relevant systems, so particularly in the safe work area, maritime is obviously an area where we know that it is a difficult place to work, to do safely, and important that we get it right. Similarly with critical infrastructure, but I think the important bit is that we've got a clear need for there to be activity and knowledge in these areas. So and some of the evidence base that we've put together tells us that, in terms of the World Risk Poll tells us what professions and industries would be higher hazard, as does sort of data from the International Labour Organization and others, and you'll have own country ones. I think it's probably fair to say that the closer it is to our mission area, the more likely it is to be funded. So safer maritime systems, critical infrastructure sectors are more likely to be within our mission space, and we have to fund within that because that's within our charitable objectives. So I think it's unlikely, for example, that we'd fund something around agriculture unless it was particularly it was going to give us wider learning across the piece.
Thank you. Nancy, you mentioned that the fund won't cover the cost of interventions. Could you expand on that at all?
Yes, so we want to fund as much as we possibly can, and also we would like to partner with people. We want to make sure that these interventions can happen are more likely to be rolled out. So I think if we were going to start to fund interventions at scale, they would be very expensive, and we wouldn't get as much learning from it. And that would be more suitable for a different type of funding call. Smaller scale studies, we're more like innovation-y type ones. We're more likely to fund the intervention, but we're really after the evidence in this call.
And then someone is asking about in terms of the type of research, are they correct that the development of a theory of change is within the remit of the call, or is it the
Yes, very
evaluation
definitely.
of theories of change that you want?
No, if we don't know why something's working or how something's working, this is exactly the type of pipeline research that is necessary. Yes.
Could bringing new ways of management systems or health and safety approach be part of the evidence centre programme?
Sorry, say that one again.
This is a question asking about management systems or health and safety approaches. Is that likely to be part of the evidence centre programme?
Safety management systems, yes, and the safety side of health and safety, yes.
Apologies,
trying to see the question.
So as your definition of safety include any accidental hazards, will any project focus on chronic health problems be evaluated for this call? Answered already, I suppose.
So I think the main thing here it was really interesting looking at the different types of evidence needed and knowledge needed for different types of workplace harm, so safety and health ones. The simple answer is we're focused on safety, and on a health issue, there are likely to be other funders that are better placed. But so that's the main argument, is that we are a safety funder, and on health ones, we're not likely to be the best funder. If there are learning that is from health related work instances that's more valuable across different sectors, for example, or different types of understanding of the harm, then that is of interest, but it's likely to be a lower priority.
Thank you. It's implied that research is informed by the World Risk Poll data. The sectors in the regions we focus on have little data in the World Risk Poll. Would this suggest they are of lower interest or priority to the foundation? They're, for example, manufacturing based in Southeast Asia.
As long as there is a need for safety, as long as the need can be demonstrated, then that's fine. I think there is definitely the World Risk Poll aims to fill a gap in safety data, and we've done our best to pick it up. So if it's not there and there's another source that says this is a real issue, then absolutely.
And are we willing to support safety technologies at the idea stage? I'm not sure if this refers more to an intervention.
Sorry, where's this question?
It was an earlier question. Would you be willing to support safety technologies at the idea stage?
As in the technologies themselves, or so in terms of primary research, we've asked about theories of change, understanding how and why we think something might work. And then we think about, or it could be thinking about, we know this is a problem, or we know this is an issue, and what are the solutions, the innovations and ideas that might help it. Again, it's the same issue around we're less likely to fund the intervention itself, i.e. the technology or the solution, but we would fund the research around it.
And I'm going to move on to the questions around eligibility and expressions of interest format while I catch up on the other thematic questions. But just before that's a kind of question that spans both. There's a question about reporting, and it asks about that we request that for a 3-year period after the research, we'd expect reporting on a quarterly basis. Can we just say a little bit more about that? Chris or Millie, would you like to take that one?
I'm happy to take that. Yeah, it's standard within the foundation to have reports after the grant has ended, because the grant impact will only happen usually after the end of the grant. So we would ask that to happen for 3 years after the end of the grant has the work on the activity on that grant has ceased. So that's pretty standard for the foundation. But if there's any concerns there, then we're very open to discuss that at the application stage.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. And so moving on to eligibility, someone is asking about our definition of social enterprise. Would a not-for-profit social business qualify, for example? Millie, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So social enterprises are very much open, eligible to apply. There is some guidance if you're not a charity in the full guidance pack around applying if you're not a set up as an NGO.
We have lots and lots of questions, so just trying to prioritize. Okay. So I think all of the other questions we've covered really under eligibility. If not, please feel free to follow up with us. On the expression of interest itself, someone has asked whether we would be able to give feedback to the initial concept shared with you well enough before time to develop it appropriately for the expressions of interest. Millie, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, so following the submission of the expression of interest, so we will be going through and reviewing those, and those that are invited to apply will be notified in November with any feedback in terms of areas that we'd like to see further development on. And of course, you're welcome to speak to us ahead of submission as well. But yeah, we will very much be providing feedback at that stage to support with the full application.
Thank you. And then a question that's come up a lot in different ways. Can applicants submit multiple expressions of interest, or is there a limit on it? Millie, would you like to take that one?
Yes, so while you are able to submit multiple, we would recommend sort of focusing on one, because it's quite unlikely that we would fund multiple from one organisation. And yeah, I think the other points remain about sort of if you're an OECD country applicant, making sure that you're really focusing on the securing leveraging or partnership. So just to bear those points in mind as well.
Thank you. We have a question about collaboration. When working with partners from your priority countries, should they support the research capability or collaborate in some other way?
I'm happy to answer that one. I don't mind where the balance of, it doesn't matter, I think, what type of partnership it is, as long as it is locally led and it's a proper partnership, whether that's on the research side or on the stakeholder side or the policy side or the intervention, doesn't matter. I think as long as it's a fair locally led partnership that is properly a partnership, then that's what we're looking for.
And just linked to that, and we've touched on it, but just to reiterate, someone is asking if it's possible to join another country out of the list. I see them out of the list of our focus ocean central countries as associate country with this call.
It's a
I think
country choice.
Yeah, I think it's asking about our priority countries.
Yeah, and so we're driven in this call where the safety need is, and the World Risk Pool helps us identify that, but other information will tell us as well. I think we've put the country choice as desirable, but not essential in that. So if you can demonstrate the need and wider applicability to impact and relevance for the field, then there's not a particular limit on the countries.
Right, some longer questions. There's a question about indirect costs, which comes up a lot, so I think we should address it. I see you mentioned that funding will only cover a maximum of 10% indirect costs, and that there is an exemption waiver process to allow higher overheads. Does that 10% limit apply for this funding call? Millie or Chris, would you like to take that?
I can take that. We'll pay for any costs that are well justified up to about 10%. If there's anything which is over and above that, then I think it would be worth speaking to the foundation. But all costs that are indirect need to be well justified as a key part of the project. I think that's probably about all we can say on that at the moment. But yeah, we're really looking to fund the direct costs of the project.
Thanks, Chris. Some more kind of topic related stuff. Would evidence and interventions for safe work within different manufacturing sectors in Kenya be eligible? And two, is this research, is it just research that's funded or interventions? I think we've touched on that, but if we need to mention again, Nancy, could you
So
talk to that?
the short answer is manufacturing in Kenya, yes. Again, though, it's the research. This is an evidence call. So it's the research of those different types of evidence reviews, primary research from pipeline through to trials, data analysis and data infrastructure to make it easier for other researchers to or others to understand the impact that they're having, or bringing out expert knowledge or setting research agendas that we're looking for it in this call. But yes, manufacturing in Kenya, yeah.
Brilliant. We have a couple of questions about waste management. I'm just checking that they are covering the same thing. So said they work on chemical and waste safety for informal sector workers like e-waste recyclers and healthcare waste handlers. Would a project evaluating safety interventions in these groups be within scope? Similarly, Mike Whitmore was asked about, would waste management be more on the fringes of this grant call, given the priorities discussed?
So we are interested in the safe end of engineered life, so the end of life of a product or infrastructure item, or so that sort of area. So that's definitely something that is of interest in our context. And obviously informal work is we know is an area it's harder to understand and research and measure, but it is definitely something that we'd be interested in helping understand whether we can improve safety in informal work. Yeah. Did I answer both those questions?
Yeah, I think so. Lots of overlapping questions, which is great, that I think we've already addressed. Are you only looking for quantitative evidence, or are you open to qualitative mixed methods evidence, especially for more exploratory projects?
This is a really good methodological question. Quantitative and qualitative evidence and mixed methods research is all valuable as long as it's done to robust standards and criteria. I'm interested in both quantitative and qualitative evidence synthesis too. I guess the method has to be appropriate to the stage of the evidence that we're at. If we don't know anything at all, qualitative and mixed methods is really valuable. in particular to understand that theory of change, for example. And it's really helpful for understanding how and why things work, or how they may be adopted in practice, for example. Qualitative evidence is very helpful. The important thing is that there are evidence standards and like quality standards for quantitative, qualitative and mixed methods research, and that it should be proportionate and appropriate to both the current evidence base in the area and the project that is being done. So if it's all very well doing a randomized control trial, but if actually that level of robustness isn't appropriate for the type of project or for the scale of the intervention, then it's not the right choice, even if it's considered a gold standard. Picking the right project, right methodology for the right stage of the evidence and the stage of the project is exactly what I'm looking for, yes.
There's a question about the total funding available for the call. Millie, do you want to go over that again?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the total budget, we are looking for total proposals. We have a £2 million envelope, but we are looking for individual projects of up to £250,000. As a general guide, we're looking for between 100 to 250. You're welcome to go below those thresholds, absolutely. But if you wanted to go above that, we'd really recommend you get in touch with us with a really strong rationale as to why, and we'll be able to guide you as to whether that is something we would be keen to see through the EOI process.
I'm just reviewing. There are a number of questions here from someone called Sangwar Lee. I'm just going to pick up. I'm going to start with them. If the foundation has any specific topics, areas of mind within the 3 strategic areas, yeah, I think the question is, would we prioritise any of those areas within our strategic areas? Nancy, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so most of all, I'm looking for a robust proposal that is a high quality research. That's what I've talked about, the quality of research that matters most. It needs to be relevant and useful to the audience, so somebody wants to use it and it takes into account the needs and interests of those who are going to use this, as it will make a difference in practice. That's the, like, is it a good proposal on those bases? I think once it's done that, I think if it does meet these other criteria, I'm expecting this to be quite a competitive call, that those other ones that are in our countries or particularly closer to the desirable criteria are likely to be ranked more highly.
I think we've answered the question about the priority countries. Next question is, if we propose a living form of evidence, how would the grant accommodate activities extending beyond the 2-year funding period?
This is a really great question. So I am looking to see if we can get a living evidence review in these areas. And living means that you're updating it regularly. And the methodology for living evidence reviews is really quite exciting at the moment from my perspective. This is maybe where, I mean, knowing the cost of what it will be for a living evidence review, how much it would cost to update it each year, for example, would be useful to know in an application. And that might be something where it might take you longer than the 2 years, as in we'd like to see updates over 5 to 10 year period, for example. So that if it's still within the budget envelope, but it might take a longer time scale, that is an area of particular interest. Yes, please.
I think I'll try and get a few more of these questions answered, and then we can go to the people with their hands up. We've had a few different questions about the expressions of interest format itself, which I don't think we've answered directly. Millie, would you like to say anything about that?
Yeah, sorry, in terms of the format, is there a specific?
Yeah, just generally,
question
what is the format? the expressions
Oh,
of
okay,
interest, what
sure.
they expect.
So there is actually information in the PDF guidance document that will go through that. So it is largely just showing we just want to see a summary of the project. We want to hear the rationale, the aims and objectives and activities, and understand the kind of the context and the evidence base that you are seeking to put your project within. We want to understand a bit about end user engagement, and also a very top line total budget. At this stage, we'll ask for more detail at the later stage, and then there is more information as well on what you'll be expecting to submit in the full application, so you can have a look through that in the pack as well.
There are a couple of related questions, but there's a question considering the closeness of the foundation mission, would hazardous products that rely on shipping for use but are not part of the system itself be considered? For example, transport of hazardous chemicals for production of, for example, leather.
That's a really interesting one.
That's that's linked as well to another question. If a study looks at chemical exposure but links to it directly to unsafe work practices and safety gaps, would that be eligible?
I think it's much more likely to be eligible, yes. And I was actually thinking about, for example, battery fires in storage in maritime, for example, is we know is a known issue.
So kind of also leading on, are we exclusively looking at maritime, or what about agriculture?
This is a good question. So no, we're not exclusively looking at maritime, although maritime systems, critical infrastructure and engineering safety are big priorities for us as a foundation, and it would be probably ranked a bit more highly as a proposal. It doesn't mean we're not interested in other areas. Agriculture is tricky because it's similar like to road safety, somebody else has mentioned. These are big areas of safety hazards, and we're not always the best funder for these. And one of the questions in the form is, why are you the best funder for these issues? I think we're interested in those if they are able to bring us wider safety learning, or have significant leverage funding or partnerships with people who can use that learning to make changes in ways more than we can. So I think it's, are we the best funder, or is it able to help influence others to act on those issues, or give us wider learning that's relevant across safety more generally?
There have been quite a few questions that ask about specific countries. I hope that we've addressed that through our other answers to other questions, but please come back to us if not. I'm going to ask 2 more questions and then move over to the people with their hands up, if that's okay, and then hopefully we'll have time to come back to stuff. Climate change impacts such as extreme heat waves and floods also make workers, especially informal workers in cities, unsafe. A proposal intending to make their lives and livelihoods safer, would that be eligible?
It's hard to say specifically, but certainly you've identified that climate change and informal work are both areas of research interest, yes.
And there's a question about, are first-time researchers allowed to participate, or do you need to have done previous research?
Very welcome.
Okay, I think I'm going to move over to people with their hands up. I don't seem to be able to allow them to turn the mic on. Millie, is that something you can do?
Yeah, let me just give that all. Okay, it might be worth just taking one other question from the Q&A, and bear with me and I'll just go and change some settings.
Question here, would shipyards be counted as the maritime context you're looking for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Shipyards, ports, ferries, fishing, aquaculture. Yes, all of those are in maritime systems. Yes, you can see our website for more information about what we would consider within the maritime system. But yes, those are.
So there's a question, please advise which category of institution the United Nations University would fall under, and is it eligible to apply? Some of the universities located in Germany, do we need to meet the criteria of being funded by OECD?
I think that one might be 4 million, Chris, but I think we might need to follow up that separately.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that up. I mean, it would class as a university, so it would be fine as long as you were working with partners or organizations in countries and really demonstrated that need, then I think that would be fine. I think if it was an organization that's able to hold a grant and has held grants, then it's probably an organization that we can contract with.
Thanks, Chris. Caitlin, I think the microphones, individuals should now be able to unmute themselves.
Oh, great. Yeah. So should we go to Renuka first?
Thank you so much. I would like to know, because high stress is put throughout the conversation, that evidence needs to be collected. Of course, evidence needs to be collected and it has to be intervened with the practice. And so, but what I see that to inform decision making, but there could be, I'm talking about the output. So output needs to be just in articles and publications and reports. Of course, that can be, but is there a proposal would say that, okay, we are going to develop a game for skill development and that can be applied at different level and for different stakeholders, so that it can also capture emerging technologies and also inform the decision making and also be a playful to increase the skill and training programs. Is that something fall into it here or not?
So I think, I mean, can't comment on the specific project, but the Evidence Centre is interested in translation and communication of evidence, and how decision makers use that. And decision makers can be policy officials, elected officials, standard setters, committees that decide things. It can also be professionals in the workplace, in different types of workplace, and lots of different types of professionals can improve safety outcomes in their areas. And it could also be communities themselves to use evidence more effectively to improve safety outcomes as well. I think if there was a particular intervention about using evidence, it would need to have a good evidence base for doing that particular type of intervention. So there's a whole evidence base on evidence use, and so it would need to be quite strongly grounded in that evidence and in the need and effectiveness as well.
Thank you so much.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Okay, next one is, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Kwaku. Oh, I'm not sure that they can unmute themselves as a...
Okay, Kwaku, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Right, yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so I wanted to find out how many partners would you recommend in a consortium for an application, and whether there's also cross-country proposals are allowed, say between Ghana and Kenya. So those are the two questions I wanted to put across. Thank you.
I think I can answer the second one very easily. Cross-country proposals are definitely allowed. And I think somebody else has asked that as well from Bangladesh too. It can be within a particular country, but potential for impact and learning more broadly, or it can be a combination of countries. That's definitely welcome. And the first part of the question,
Number of partners.
Oh yes, that was right. Number of partners. I don't have a view yet on what is an ideal number of partners. I think the question, so the number of partners needs to be appropriate for the challenge that you're trying to do. I think it will also, projects are also assessed on their deliverability. So complex partnerships can be quite difficult to maintain within the budget. They take effort and action to do, but again, can lead to much greater impact. So if it is a great partnership, I don't think we've got a view yet on how big that is, as long as it's deliverable and suitable for the project.
I'll just come in on that as well to say about the contracting. So we as an organisation will only contract with a lead partner. So in some funders will contract the different organisations within a partnership, will contract with the lead partner. So just wanted to clarify that in terms of the way in which we do that.
Right, thanks a lot.
Okay, do we have time for any more questions?
I think we have just about hit 12 o'clock, and I think there are still multiple ones. I think that was a new hand, so I think we should possibly round up now, but please do, it's been really wonderful to see how much engagement we've had in the Q&A session. Thank you for your really insightful questions, and really excited to hear so many different people interested in applying. Please do, if there were any questions not answered, please do feel free to get in touch, and please do make use of the PDF document, which has got some FAQs in it as well. But thank you ever so much, and we really look forward to reading your applications. Thanks, and thank you to our speakers, Nancy, Chris and Caitlin, for managing that Q&A. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.